Good afternoon. My name is John Nemirovsky. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at SIA Integration. I'm here this afternoon with Jeff Cole from the Security Industry Association, and we're going to talk to you about our top 10 sales key performance indicators today, or KPIs. And this is important to an organization, whether you're bringing on new salespeople or managing existing salespeople. So the number one KPI that I like to measure with sales team members is number of calls or number of touches a day. So that can be emails, in-mails, phone calls, face-to-face knocking on doors, however they're going to make those calls. And I think a fair number for a salesperson, especially a new salesperson without a lot of existing base of accounts, is 25 touches a day. And when you start to look at that, if you have a 10-person sales department, that's 250 new logos that your company's touching each day. And even if you only work on that 4 days a week, you're making a lot of touches during that week. And if you start to extrapolate that number through the year, there could be 40,000 new touches, which lead to my next KPI, number of appointments from those touches. So from those 40,000 touches that I just talked to you about, I'd like to extrapolate that out to say 10% or 4,000 new face-to-face appointments. Well, that's a big number. So how are you measuring that and understanding your ratios? So understanding your ratios as a sales leader from touches to appointments, and then how many appointments do you need to have to generate how many quotes, and measuring that. So measuring touches to appointments to quotes also lets a sales leader know coachable moments. So if your salesperson's making 25 touches a day, they're doing the work, but what are they saying or doing wrong not to get the appointment? So you can coach to that. If they're getting the appointment, but not getting the opportunity to quote, you can coach to that too. If they're getting the quotes out the door, but you're not closing any business, you can coach around quoting. Is it pricing? Is it qualification of the customer? What's going on with the quotation? So if you'd like to set these numbers, 25 touches to number of appointments with that 10% ratio, to 15% of those will turn into quotes, to number of sales, right? So we couldn't talk about KPIs without talking about sales quotas. And every salesperson needs a quota to work towards. And the easiest way, once you have that quota, is to work back. How many touches do I need? How many appointments to how many quotes? The next measurement, the fifth measurement I'm going to talk about, is days to quote to sale. So once I put the quote out to the customer, how many days on average does it take me to close that? And that's a critical KPI, so you understand when the business is going to go in, how to staff for it, what it does to your backlog. And then average gross profit margin per quote. So setting that gross profit margin for your salespeople to hit on average, to drive the business. Um, in some cases, I set the gross profit margin as a quota instead of the top line as a quota. Depends on the maturity of your sales force. The next one is percent to quota. So now that they have a quota, we just finished our first quarter in 2022. What is their percent to quota? So if their quota was $4 million, have they hit $1 million in bookings in the first quarter? What is their percent to quota to date? And then I like to measure all the way back from number of days appointment to close. So I had my first appointment today. How long from appointment to close? So starting to measure that. So earlier we talked about the KPI that was number of days from quote to close. Now how many days is it that you measure from appointment to close? And any CRM can help you track this data and show it to you, and then make good business decisions around it. And then measuring simple things like average size of a quote. So if you know your average size quote's $93,000 and your team's going to put out 588 quotes this year after they made 25 appointments a day and had 4,000 face-to-face meetings, and you win 588 quotes, there's your $28 million of new business in 2022. So measuring all these things makes sense. And then lastly, I like to measure that number of days touched to appointment. So from that first touch to that first appointment to that first quote to first sale, measuring those days and how long they take are good math for us to keep in any CRM to help increase the effectiveness of our sales force. Thanks for listening to Jeff and I this afternoon on our sales KPIs. And up next, Jeff and I are going to be talking to you about financial KPIs. So thanks again. I'm John Nemirovsky from Sage Integration.